Hello everybody! How are you tonight? Welcome to our International Business English classes. My name is Rodrigo and I'm officially a Cambridge examiner for the speaking part of the test. And tonight I've prepared something so special for you, which is the logistics part of business English, alright? But before we start this class, if you haven't subscribed yet, please click on the link below and make sure you follow all my tips for both vocabulary and grammar next time, alright? So usually I split all my business classes into different areas. So at some classes I teach logistics, then other classes I teach financial English, then I teach human resources and quality and marketing. So tonight our focus is going to be 100% in logistics terms. So not only am I going to teach you the terms, but also I'm going to teach you how to use them in a sentence. Yes! So that is very promising. So let's start our class. And the first term of the night is going to be the mirage. Again, the mirage. Basically, that's a charge payable to the owner of a chartered ship in respect of failure to load or discharge the ship within the time agreed. In other words, if you take too long to discharge or load the ship, and if the ship overstays in the port, you have to pay the mirage, alright? And there are some tips to avoid or reduce the mirage charges, which is basically to pre-clear your cargo and issue delivery instructions to your inland carrier in advance, alright? And how would you use the mirage in a sentence? I can give you a first example, like we've been charged the mirage. In that first example, I used the present perfect because we haven't used a date. So I didn't specify when that's happened, alright? But I can give you a second example now, a more complete one. So, the company has 2 days to clear the wagon before the mirage is payable, alright? So, in this way, you're using the word the mirage accordingly. Excellent! So, let's move to our next term, which is going to be reverse flow or even reverse logistics. So basically, that's the process of moving goods or materials from the consumer back to the point of origin in order to recapture value or dispose of it properly, okay, in a proper way. As an example, the reverse logistics may include planning, the implementation and control of the process flow in order to ensure efficiency and cost effectiveness, alright? And the main objectives of reverse logistics are to maximize the value recovery and safe disposal of waste. And number 2, the maximization of value recovery. For example, if product intended for a sale is returned by the customer, the product cost is not recovered at all. And how would we use reverse flow in a sentence? So I prepared something for you. So, as online shopping increases, the management of reverse flow is an increasingly important part of the supply chain. So that's a proper way of using reverse flow or reverse logistics. It depends on American or British English, alright? Excellent! So now, let's move to the next term. And in this case, it's an idiom, you see. From cradle to grave. So not only do we use from cradle to grave in general English, but also we apply that in business terms, you know. When we talk about our life, we want to say for our whole life, since we were born until we die. But when we use it for business, we talk about a product's life, you know what I mean? So, like in business, the term cradle to grave is used in reference to a firm's perspective on environmental impact created by their products or activities from the beginning of its life cycle to its end or its disposal. And cradle to grave, or C2G, refers to the strategy of marketing products and services to consumers throughout their lives, as I had said before. And the goal is to develop appropriate products, communications and promotions that will maximize sales to consumers at each life stage. So let's see how to use cradle to grave in a sentence. For example, all European countries recognize lifelong learning from cradle to grave as a key factor for growth, jobs, and social inclusion. Okay? That's a perfect example of the usage of cradle to grave in business English. Alright guys. So, let's move to WE, which is short for Waste Electrical and Electronic Equipment. Again, Waste Electrical and Electronic Equipment. So WE is basically a complex mixture of materials and components that, because of their hazardous content, and if not properly managed, can cause major environmental and health problems. So we cannot play around with electrical and electronic equipment. That could be extremely dangerous, alright? So, because of that, there are some directives. And the directives gives guidance on 5 terms. Number 1, reuse, which basically means use it again. Number 2, repair, which is basically fixing or replacing parts of the product. Number 3, refurbishment, which basically means restores the product back to the original specifications. Number 4, remanufacturing, which basically means upgrading or improving its performance. And number 5 is recycling, obviously saving for future usage. So the 5 R's are the directives. This is the guidance for waste electrical and electronic equipment. And how would you use we in a sentence? So, first example, the WE directive sets criteria for collections, treatment, and recovery of waste electrical and electronic equipment. And that's a perfect example. The grammar is perfect, and that's the way you use it in a sentence in business English. Alright, guys? So, let's move. Now we've got outsourcing and offshoring. So, basically, outsourcing and offshoring are very similar, with one exception that outsourcing is inside your own country, and offshoring, you use a different country to do the service. So basically, outsourcing is when organizations or companies, they pay subcontractors or outside suppliers to do what was previously carried out in-house. In other words, inside the company itself. Okay? So, for instance, let's imagine that in my company I have an IT team. It's getting too expensive to pay for a whole team of IT experts. So what I can do, I can outsource the IT. So I get another company do that for me. You understand? So I have another company do that for me, and in this way I'm outsourcing. However, if I get another country to do that in another company to do that in another country, so I mean abroad, then what I'm doing, I'm offshoring. So basically, I'm outsourcing exactly the same thing, but I'm using an abroad company. A company which doesn't stay inside my own country, alright? And for that, we have the terms BPO, which is Business Process Outsourcing. And that is divided into back office and front office outsourcing. So there are 2 types of outsourcing. So the back office basically is in charge of the purchasing, which basically means buying materials. The payroll basically means the payment of employee salaries, and the billing, or in which English we say invoicing, which is basically sending invoice to customers. And then we have another 2, which is the front office, which is the technical support. So in this case, we do all the maintenance and training customers, so we deal with customers. And all the marketing, again, we talk to customers, right? We're the front office. So again, BPO, Business Process Outsourcing. Excellent. So how do you use that in a sentence? So I can say to you that it's a great way of saving money if we decide to offshore. Or deciding to offshore is a great way of making money. That's a great example I can give you. Alright? Excellent. So let's move topics now. And the next topic is landed costs. Again, landed cost. Basically, the landed cost is the total cost of a product to the point it's ready to be delivered to your customer. That includes not only the base cost to purchase your products from your supplier overseas, but also costs associated with transportation, duties and taxes, insurance, handling fees, and etc. Alright? So that's what we call a landed cost. And I can give an example how to use that in a sentence. For example, knowing the landed costs helps your pricing your products correctly and adequately cover your costs for a better profitability. In other words, if you know how to do that properly, you're gonna make more profit. It's going to be more profitable. Alright? Excellent. So let's move to the next term, which is, let's just move it here. Consignee. Alright? Consignee. So basically, a consignee is the entity that the shipper is sending the goods to. That's typically you, the importer. But there are exceptions. A consignee could be someone that acts in your name or on your behalf, for example. Typically, you see consignee along with the word consigner and consignment. The consigner is the shipper of your goods, and the consignment is the actual goods being shipped. So you are the consignee, you are the importer, alright? 99% of times, okay? So, goods must be signed for by the consignees. So that's a great example on how to use that in a sentence. Again, goods must be signed for by the consignees. I'm going to give a second example. If the consignee refuses the goods, the carrier will ask the sender for instructions because he doesn't know exactly what to do. So basically the consignee has to sign for it because you are the importer. You are the person that signs for the final document. You are the consignee, alright? Excellent. So let's move to the next one. Now, next term is bill of lading. Bill of lading. So basically, two common bills of lading types are the house and the master. Okay? The house bill of lading, HBL, is a receipt or even a contract between you and your NVOCC or freight forwarder. I'm going to talk about NVOCC in a minute, okay? But freight forwarder is the same thing, alright? And the master bill of lading, your MBL, is the contract between your NVOCC or freight forwarder and the actual carrier. So they're both documents. So one document is HBL and the other document is MBL. Alright? It's called bill of lading. How would you use that in a sentence? For example, the buyer must present the bill of lading in order that the goods can be released. Because without doing that, goods cannot be released. Alright? Another example. With the bill of lading, the carrier acknowledges that it has received the goods that are to be transported. Okay? So they sign for that. That document says that the goods can be transported. So they're good to go. Alright? Excellent. So, let's move. Now, LCL. LCL stands for less than container load. It It's very easy to guess what that is. If you ship LCL, your shipment shares the container with cargo from other importers. So basically, you don't use the whole cargo for yourself. Transit times longer for LCL due to the consolidation and deconsolidation before and after ocean transit, but it's more economical for smaller shipments. So just imagine you're only shipping a piano and the container is very, very large. In other words, we could fit 10 pianos in a container. So you're going to use LCL because this way you're not going to use the whole container for yourself. You're only going to use a part of the container, and you're going to share the cargo with other importers, okay? How can I use in a sentence? For instance, I can say, LCL ocean freight rates are higher than full container loads due to the wasted space. That's only in case if you hire this way, but you don't fill up the whole container. Alright? Excellent. And the other way you can ship is FCL, which stands for full container load. Now, this means only your cargo occupies the container rather than sharing space as it's the case in LCL. It's usually cheaper from a landed cost perspective and faster to ship via FCL, and the risk of damages or loss are decreased since your goods aren't handled as LCLs. So basically you have a container for yourself, okay? Only your cargo will be inside that container, alright? Obviously, in this case, it's going to be cheaper because you're not going to share with anybody, but make sure you fill it up because then you can carry a lot of stuff inside the same container, okay? So just wait to have a lot of goods to be transported and then use a full container for yourself, okay? How can I use it in a sentence? Like with a FCL, your shipment will be the only cargo in the container. And that's exactly how we use it in a sentence. Alright? So, let's move. Drayage. Again, drayage. Basically, it's a truck service that moves containers to and from a port. Again, it's a truck service that's going to move those containers, inside and outside of a port. So how can I use in a sentence? I can say that drayage will be increased from $200 to $230 per trip. That's one way of using it. Very simple manner, okay? And that's the best drayage company I've ever seen. So I've tested a lot of drayage companies, but that's the one that's the best I've ever seen. Alright? So drayage. Excellent. Now let's move to the next. Incoterms. So when you talk of Incoterms, it's a short for international commercial terms. Again, international commercial terms. And specifically, they're trade terms published by the International Chamber of Commerce, ICC, and are internationally recognized by the shipping industry. As an importer, Incoterms are what you and your suppliers use to define the responsibilities and risks in a transaction. And two common Incoterms used by your importers and exporters are free on board, FOB, and cost, insurance, and freight, which is CIF. So again, that is a short for international commercial terms, So basically, there are terms that you and your supplier use to define all the responsibilities, all the risks involved in a transaction. And how can I use that in a sentence? I can say to you, as an importer, you have to understand the costs, the responsibilities, rights, and obligations that accompany the use of a specific Incoterm. Okay, that's exactly how I use in a sentence. Alright? Excellent. So, next term, steamship line or steamship carrier. Okay. So these two terms are often used interchangeably in ocean freight to refer to the operator of the vessel itself. Okay. So when you see an ocean container that says My Erks, Evergreen, OOCL, etc., those are names of steamship lines or ocean carriers. And large volume importers typically sign contracts directly with steamship lines. Why would they do that? Because they take advantage of their buying power. Because the smaller and mid-sized shippers typically are best served by freight forwarders to provide the best mix of competitive rates, value-added service, and flexibility. Alright? So again, let's understand this. A large volume importers, they typically sign contracts directly with steamship lines, okay? Because of buying power, so they can cry on prices, they can get a much smaller price in the end. Because if your company is very small, if you are smaller and mid-sized shippers, then typically it's much better to use a freight forward to provide the best mix of competitive rates and values and services, alright? And how would I use that in a sentence? I can say to you, like, a good steamship line provides cargo transportation services through its own vessels. So they use their own vessels. Sometimes they can lease as well, but usually they use their own vessels, a good company, alright? Excellent. So now it's time to learn what is NVOCC. So NVOCC stands for Non-Vessel Operating Common Carrier. Again, Non-Vessel Operating Common Carrier. It's a type of ocean transportation intermediary. Okay? So they're intermediating the whole business. Although the term NVOCC is often used synonymously with the term freight forwarder, there are some technical distinctions. NVOCCs act as virtual carrier and issues their own bill of lading. For Federal Maritime Commission requirements, an NVOCC must also publish and maintain a regulated tariff. So they're a kind of virtual carrier and they have their own bill of lading. Alright? So again, NVOCC, non-vessel operating common carrier. And how can I use that in a sentence? I can tell you, like, NVOCCs can use a variety of shipping modes such as ships, airplanes, and trains. Okay, that's a perfect example of how to use NVOCC in a sentence as a noun. Alright? And now we are going to move to our last two terms. Marine insurance. So, as the name says, marine insurance is insurance for ocean freight. So marine insurance can cover damage or loss to your cargo while in transit. For most commodities, marine insurance is relatively cost effective and it helps mitigate the risk of common losses or even a general average situation. So guys, usually companies have no choice. They have to pay for marine insurance. This is not a type of thing that you can choose not to pay for. Should anything happen during transit, so the insurance will cover for everything. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's different in some countries that you can choose if you want to pay for health insurance. You can choose if you want to pay for your car insurance. You can choose if you want to pay for fire insurance in your company. In the case of marine insurance, it's mandatory, it's compulsory, because that will cover for any damage or loss to your cargo while in transit. So don't worry, it's not overly expensive and it will cover for all your losses in case something goes wrong. Alright? And the last term of the day in logistics is 3PL. Again, 3PL. And 3PL stands for Third-Party Logistics. Again, a third-party logistics. So, a 3PL service provider offers outsourcing solutions for a company's fulfillment and distribution needs. The term 3PL is relatively broad, but often involves other related transportation, warehousing, IT, or supply chain service. Alright? So again, a third-party logistics. They offer outsourced solutions for the company's fulfillment and distribution needs. So all the distribution awareness, alright? So let me give you an example of how to use 3PL in a sentence. We can say, 3PL are in charge of the purchase, storage, and distribution processes of business chains. And again, I used it as a noun. So that was a perfect usage for 3PL term, okay? So guys, thank you so much for having been with me all this time. Thanks a lot for watching this business class. Again, as I told you before, I divide my classes into logistics, finances, human resources, and quality. And tonight was a night of logistics. So thanks a lot. I hope you subscribe to my channel so you can follow all the classes next time. Thank you so much. Again, cheers. My name is Rodrigo. I'm a Cambridge examiner. If you need any help, please don't hesitate to contact me. And I'm going to answer to you at my earliest convenience. Thanks a lot. Cheers. Goodbye. Bye-bye.